Hey guys, happy Monday and welcome to another edition of Solving Your Stress mini-series. I am your host Sam, and we come together 12:30 every Monday. We're talking about stress, we're diving in deep, we're creating understandings, and most importantly, creating a plan so that you can live with a lot less stress in your life. If this is the first time that you're joining us here, a little bit about me. My background's in law enforcement. I was a Secret Service agent in Tower 1 on 9/11 when the plane hit it. My whole life was turned upside down. I got a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress a few years after, and what that started was a new journey for me. How to navigate and live with this thing called post-traumatic stress. And I learned a lot of valuable tactics and tools on the couch in therapy, but most importantly, it's what I learned off the couch, which is what we discuss, and I answer your questions each week. So we're going to dive right in, and I want to talk about the importance of understanding stress, because the problem for most of us is that we just don't understand how stress truly affects us, our bodies. When we are in a stress situation or experiencing a stressful situation, whether it's a traumatic event like a car accident, or, like for me, being involved in a terrorist incident, whatever that stress reaction is, and it doesn't have to be that dramatic. It can be the umpteenth thing piled on you from your boss at work that creates the stress, okay? To understand the way it works is once you have that triggering event, your brain starts showering your body with all kinds of hormones. So you've got these two parts of the brain that are very vital for functioning. We've got the amygdala and we've got the prefrontal cortex. And the amygdala, when we're stressed, that's what goes nuts. Okay, that's what says, hey, danger, hey, this is too much, survival instinct. And that's why we have this surge of hormones, cortisol and epinephrine and adrenaline and all these things going on in our body. And what we need to do is we need to manage that, shut that down, and we need to engage our prefrontal cortex. That's our thinking, our rational part of the brain, which gets overridden by the amygdala when a stress event occurs. So now that you understand what goes on inside our bodies, and it's automatic, our bodies are set up to do that, that's why it's so important that we understand it so that we can, I'll say, turn back the valve. Because if you think about your body being showered with all these hormones and everything, think of it like a fire hose. Okay, it is full on open, just shooting out, covering our bodies. We're drenched. Okay, what we want to do is turn back the valve so it's trickling out. And what does that mean? That means we can think our way and make good decisions on our way through the stressful event. Because what happens if you're so stressed out that you can't make good decisions? It happens. We've seen it time and time again. Lots of historical events, okay? You may even feel it and have done it yourself. I know that I've made some pretty crappy decisions when I'm totally stressed out, okay? So it absolutely does happen. So it is vitally important that we understand what goes on with our bodies when we are experiencing stress. How do we solve that? How do we turn off that valve? Well, number one, we recognize the stressful event for what it is. It's a stressful event. How do we move through it? I talked about it before. 3-step process: detach, prioritize, and execute. So when we detach, We are pushing away from the stress. We are taking a moment. We are taking a deep breath or a series of deep breaths. We are going for a walk. Whatever we can do to separate ourselves, I like to say get a helicopter view, because when we're in the stress, we're in the trench with it. Okay, we want a helicopter view of what's going on to say, oh, this is what's causing me stress. You can't do that unless you're detached. Okay, so that's step number one. Step number two, prioritize. Now that you've recognized, because you're detached, what that stress is, you can start to make a priority list, if you will, either in your head or on paper. When you're first doing this, I suggest on paper so that you can create a plan to move through. And that priority list may contain one thing or it may contain 10 things. Whatever it is, you want to create that list, because again, we're shutting down the amygdala and turning on our prefrontal cortex, that thinking part of our brain. It's vitally important. So once we've done that, we've made our list, then what we do is we execute. And we execute on that list. We do the first thing. It's called a priority list for a reason. You've identified the most important thing, okay? You're going to do that first thing. And then once you've done that first thing, and I mean completed that first thing, the puppies are talking. See, they're like, yeah, do the first thing. Then you can move on to the second and third. But I don't want you to try and do everything at one time. I want you to take the first thing on that list. So that's detach, prioritize, and execute. Now you may be thinking, well, how am I going to remember this? 3-step process. Most of the time, the brain, unless it's completely bombarded and overloaded, can remember 3 steps. That's why phone numbers, we tend to remember phone numbers. Okay, 7 digits, we can remember that. This is only 3. Detach, prioritize, execute. All right? And the way that you remember it and you keep that going is you practice. And just like anything new in your life, it's going to take work, it's going to take practice, but I promise you, if you do it, oh man, there is no better feeling than having complete control over the stress in your life. And that is the best way to take it head on and achieve time after time. So that's it. How do we understand stress and how it impacts us? Just told you. Fight or flight, freeze, that amygdala takes over. We want to shut it down. We want our prefrontal cortex, our thinking part of the brain, to take over. We want to practice, detach, prioritize, and execute. We want to move through that stress, and we practice, because when we're in a stressful event, we always fall to the level of our habits. And if you make detach, prioritize, and execute a habit, oh, like I said, I promise you things are going to be golden. So that's it for this week. That's it for this episode. Don't forget that you can go onto my website, samanthahorwitz.com, subscribe to my blog. There are great blog posts, everything you want to know about stress. Got lots of articles, lots of things, some videos on there. You can check that out. And you can also subscribe to my YouTube. So I'm Samantha Horwitz on YouTube and Samantha Horwitz on LinkedIn. And the other social media handles, which are Facebook, which is Instagram, which is the Twitter, at the Sam Horwitz. So there you have it, everybody. Go out, make today, practice, detach, prioritize, and execute. Start it today. Make today awesome. Until next week, Sam out.